I'm Jami Floyd. Welcome to TED Talks in NYC, the series that brings TED.com celebrated conversations to television and keeps the conversation going with some of the brightest minds in New York City. This week, we're going green. And did you know that New York's commitment to sustainability extends high above the city streets, 30 feet high to be exact? It's New York City's first and only park in the sky. It's such a beautiful place if you've been there. Now, developing and maintaining a green space is a priority for New York City. Commissioner Adrian Benepe from the city's Department of Parks and Recreation is here to tell us all about it. Commissioner, welcome.
Great to be here, Jami.
So let's talk about the High Line. It is really cool, and I really urge everyone to get out there and see it if they haven't already. But let's talk about other major city projects in the works that take advantage of, I guess, what we can call wasted space, right?
Well, that's the whole thing. New York doesn't have a lot of open space. If we're going to build new parks, and we have to, the mayor said we need to, we're going to add 1 million people. Plan NYC was developed to have a greater, greener New York City and to make it more sustainable. To do that, we have to find land for new parks. And there aren't virgin forests waiting to be turned into parks. Luckily, we do have some forests that are almost virgin. But we have all of these industrial wastelands, this leftover, when industry left and went to other countries, when the shipping and docking industries left the harbor. And those are great opportunities. They're also very expensive. But all across the city, we're in the biggest period of park development and expansion since the 1930s, perhaps the biggest period in the city's history.
Now, you mentioned Plan NYC. Tell us a little more about that. What is that initiative? And what are your goals for the long term?
Plan NYC is the city's sustainable development plan. It's looking at things like air quality and water quality and residential housing and transportation, but also looks at parks. How to have the city be more livable by the year 2030. If we're thinking that 1 million more people will be living here. In the parks world, there's at least $400 million that's been allocated to create big new parks, to turn part-time schoolyards into full-time playgrounds, to make sure that every New Yorker is within a 10-minute walk of a park or playground, to add 1 million trees, to add hundreds of green streets, to create many new playing fields. And it's all going on despite the terrible economy that we're in, this global recession. The mayor has kept the budget very healthy for building new parks and for expanding and renovating old parks. But in addition to the Plan NYC projects, there are huge new park building projects like Brooklyn Bridge Park, an 80-acre new park not far from this studio on the Brooklyn waterfront. We're doing the Williamsburg Greenpoint waterfront as part of a big rezoning there. Hudson River Park construction continues. Massive new parks in the Bronx and parks along the Bronx River. Fresh Kills, where we're turning the old landfill, a 2,000-acre landfill, into a park. So everywhere you look across the city, in every neighborhood, there are new parks being built and old parks being renovated.
So again, using wasted space.
Using wasted space. A garbage dump is what could be more waste than a garbage dump?
Now, you mentioned Fresh Kills. Is there any health risk to creating a park on land that was landfill for, I think, about a half a century?
Yeah, there will be no health risk because we're very carefully guided by state DEC and health regulations, and there's nothing we do where we're not completely in partnership with regulators. The entire landfill has now been capped. There's 2 feet of topsoil on top of this cap. There's meadow grasses growing up there. We already have tours happening in the parks, and we're developing soccer fields in some of the low-lying areas. It will take about 30 or 40 years to complete. It's kind of like Central Park.
Almost as many years to complete as it's been there as landfill. Give us some more of a sense. You mentioned soccer fields, some more of a sense of what the completed project might look like, some of the wonderful detail of what people might expect to see 30 years, 20 years from now.
Well, Fresh Kills Park, like Brooklyn Bridge Park, is recycling a landscape, so it's the ultimate recycling project. Then we're going to be growing a lot of the plants that we use on the site from native seeds that have been gathered in the area. It's largely speaking, it's kind of like a mountainous landscape. When you're on top of these capped landfills, it feels like an alpine meadow already. And there'll be running trails and cross-country trails, hiking, biking, horseback riding. It'll be like going to the Catskills here in New York City.
Okay, Alpine Meadow is not what people think of.
It feels like it. I've been up, I promise you, come up there and you have a 30-mile view into New Jersey. You can see downtown Manhattan. It's really an extraordinary place.
One thing critics have said, especially about the High Line, is that there's a disparity with the amount of development with parks like the High Line being built in wealthier areas of the city rather than in poorer areas. What's your response to that?
My response would be that it's simply not true. We're spending $600 million in the Bronx alone. We did, with some mitigation funds we got from a water filtration project, 77 different park projects to completely upgrade all the parks in the Bronx. We're spending $100 million in parks along the Bronx River. We have spent, since the mayor took office, $3 billion across the city. There's another $1.5 billion in the budget. This is an unparalleled level of investment. And the mayor's commitment has been to a 5-borough strategy, to developing small downtown areas across the city, to having parks be the focus of economic development strategies, and to look at across the city and say every park needs great parks. Now, the nice thing about public-private partnerships, as at the High Line, is the city isn't paying anything to maintain the High Line. It's all being maintained through private donations. That means that I can take city tax dollars and put them in neighborhoods where there aren't a large concentration of wealthy citizens. The city pays very little toward the maintenance of Central Park because the Central Park Conservancy raises private donations. That means I can take scarce city resources and use those in parks in Harlem.
Robert Hammond says in his TED Talk, quote, "Public space can have the power to transform how people experience their city and interact with each other." So let me ask you, Commissioner, how do you feel that the city's green spaces transform the lives of New Yorkers?
In New York, parks are not just luxuries, they're necessities. Most of us live in apartments or small houses. Most of us don't have a front yard or backyard. The life of New York is an outdoor life. It takes place outdoors. We meet with people outdoors. We enjoy our music, our art, our dance. And what makes New York such a great city, I think, first and foremost, and Mayor Bloomberg would agree, is that it's a city of immigrants, that we all learn to get along and we strive together. But I think the other thing that makes it great is parks. And when the parks were bad, the city went down. When the parks are great, the city has come up. Could be a coincidence? I don't think so.
And we can't thank you enough for being here.
I think the best thing your viewers should do is get out into a park, winter, spring, summer, fall. They're really great.
All right. Well, thank you, Commissioner Adrian Benepe, Parks Commissioner for New York City.